Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Sunletter, host of How to Fight CPS and Win, the New York edition. My claim to fame is that I divorced an attorney who formerly worked for Niagara County CPS in New York State. He is a current public defender. My children disclosed horrific abuse, including strangulation and sex abuse as children. And my ex has 4 CPS indications from a neighboring county, yet the courts give him custody. I have with me today another very special guest with similar circumstances. Her ex is also an attorney and friend of the courts. Ms. Tracy Arms, would you like to describe your situation and say hello to the audience?
Hi, everyone. Yes, my similarity to Stacy's is very, spot on. It's an abuse of these people, of whether you're a crooked cop and they're all kind of siding towards you. Same thing with an abusive person of the law, especially an attorney. They abuse their status. There's favoritism going on. There is a blind eye that's turned. And that's exactly my situation. Exactly. To the point.
Right. And when you're talking about the special privileges, of course, you can tell too, there is a tone of a lot of ex parte conversation going on that you are an outsider to.
Absolutely. Which is incredulous, coming out as someone not familiar with the law. We only help these people through law school. It doesn't make us an attorney, so we don't know the ins and outs and the privy of having this go on. Only when you show up to court and a judge kind of slips up and says, when you met with me, and you're like, wait a minute, you met with me. I didn't get a chance to talk to you, Your Honor. Why is it you had a powwow session without me? Things like this, the injustice that goes on right behind our backs or in front of us.
Sometimes I think one of probably the most catastrophic mistake of my case was with my first attorney. She knew of my concerns of child abuse at the time that I commenced to divorce and went to go see her. Um, I think the biggest mistake is that she filed for my divorce in the same courts that my ex practices in regularly. Now I've had 9 judges or more recused and disqualified for cause. What's been your situation with that? Are you seeking your divorce and custody action in the same courts that your ex practices in, or how's that going?
Well, I am divorced as of 2016. This legal issues that are always thrown in as soon as I put in. The children have always resided with me for 8 years. Only until I put in a motion or for full custody, because there was a lot of interference going on of him not wanting to see the children, but would make a special effort to drive 2.5 hours to come take him out of school, but not he wouldn't visit him on his assigned weekend. So I put in an order of full custody and arrears. And that's what started the ball rolling. It's kind of a retaliation of, you know what, you filed that motion, I'm going to call CPS on you. And it's a fact. Everybody's familiar with this tactic. And it's, yeah, you would think people. So I am going through now now my children reside with him, and he was abusive and got in trouble for child abuse back in 2019. He was incarcerated for the 5th time. I don't know a lawyer that can go to jail 5 times and still practice the law, much as report it to the bar. It's an ethical and a fiduciary matter that he should have done, but the bar was like, you know what, it's no big deal. Yeah, so you bring this to their attention, and no, nothing is done. So right now I'm in a current situation. I'm not going to reveal it because there's new findings and things, but it does include CPS and the failure of CPS doing and the school systems that are not doing their job. And it's something that should have been reported to me as a parent that has no allegations and have fought not once but twice these horrible allegations. And yeah, and it was unfounded. And it was this judge, I praise her, in Albany, New York, and she picked through everything and saw the injustice and the bogus, the untruths.
So it sounds to me there's possibly is a underlying motive. I wonder if you filed for custody first and then went for arrears, if it would have been a lot more smooth. What do you think?
I think anytime you kind of start stirring the pot, it's going to cause that anger, and whether they're abusive, well, before or after, you're stirring the pot. So you can't. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. You can be arrears of 40,000 to 73,000 here in New York. Nothing happens to. But I know mothers that are $1,200 arrears, and they are threatened incarceration, and yeah, or have their driver's license taken away. So whether I think about that, Stacey, whether I should have not filed for arrears or not filed for full custody, I don't know. Either way, I think you aggravated them, and now here's
They're responding.
absolutely.
Now, what do you think about the fact? Um, Sometimes I think that these oversight agencies operate opposite what we think. I'm pretty convinced that before they discipline, say, a judge, I don't think that they're looking at the ethics. I don't think they're looking at the how their adjudication, whether it's upheld or how many appeals there are, transgressions. I think when a complaint is made against a judge, I think that the commission looks at how much money they're making for their employer, which is the state. How much money are they bringing in as a judge? And if they're doing a poor job at bringing in money, then that means that they're more likely to be disciplined than those who are bringing in a lot of money. Then they get away with anything, and in fact, probably a pat on the back and more help against their complaints. So, that in mind, your ex has been arrested 5 times as an attorney. And what do you think the effect of that is when people who get arrested seek legal counsel all the time? Do you think his practice is actually thriving more because he's been arrested 5 times and then the grievance committee has done nothing? Like, do you think um, he's actually being rewarded for his arrests?
I don't know about that. He's not the greatest. He's not Johnny Cochran or Dominic Dunn by far. So I think he was doing more of real estate closings and stuff like that. Now he's at a law firm doing not mid mal, just doing uh, what is it? Well, he's in a law firm down in Wall Street right now. Let's just say that. I So they actually hired him. If I was him, when you fill out an application, Stacey, have you ever been incarcerated? Have you ever been committed of a crime? I'm sure he gets maybe nervous of just filling out what to fill out. A, B, yes, no, maybe. Um, I would be. Anyone would be. You're incarcerated 5 times for domestic violence, of strangulation of your ex-wife, and now your child for throwing him across a room. And there's complete transparency. There's always your side, my side, and then the truth. I have no problem showing people of the exact facts and evidence and photos and audio from my child of him just thinking it's okay for his father to pick him up because he didn't want to go to church, Stacy. So this is why he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Absolutely.
You sound like a very intelligent woman. Probably you could do law better than
I think we're both. I am. You know what? The joke is, I am a better lawyer than him. It's like
that's what I'm like kind of
any
thinking. You're very well spoken. You present very
thanks. No, I got a traffic citation with 2 small children when my children were babies, like 5 and 7. And I remember they switched lanes and it was a bus lane. All of a sudden and I went down the street forever. And it was a sting. They were pulling cars off the side of the road. And I was like, oh my gosh, it turned into a bus lane. So by the time, so the police officer gave me a ticket, a moving violation. Well, I was like, I had the perfect thing of like saying, you know what, I'm going to get out of this ticket. And I told him, and I was still married at the time. I said, it's perfect. I already know how I'm going to plead not guilty. I have the baby strapped. I'm going to go with the baby strapped under my chest. And, the other one's still in a car seat. I'm going to say like some emergency happened. I had to pull over into the bus lane. It would have been great. I already had my story. And he was like, I'll go with you. I'm like, I'm not good in court, but I'll go with you. And I swear, it was like my cousin Vinny. He's like, your honor. I first must disclose she is my wife. And I was like, oh my God, I got 3 points. Let's just say I should have been the lawyer there. So I had 3 fabulous points with a fine.
Mr. Make it worse.
Yeah, it was just my cousin Vinny. Exactly. It was horrible. So yes, I think for what we've been through, and the assessment of their wrongdoings and not having the common sense of law, I think we're by far, my money's on us as being defending people.
So was CPS involved with your case? It sounds like if he was incarcerated for child abuse, was CPS involved at that point?
They were involved. In fact, they've always been involved. And the sad thing is that even when domestic violence happened back in 2014, it was funny. Instead of looking at, him, even though I've always had residential custody and there was order protection, CPS was always kind of going into my house the first time and looking at my ovens and making sure. And I felt like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then finally, when there was false allegations, when I filed the motion for full custody and arrears, that's when I had retaliation. And then that's when I had a false allegation drafted the first time. And yeah, it was pretty brutal. No one should be subjected to this, especially when all these years you're a great parent, have done nothing wrong, and out of the blue, because somebody files a motion, it should be a no-brainer. It shouldn't be false uses of taxpayers' money. Um, Somebody should have an oversight of looking at the history of the whole, both parties, of saying kind of who the instigator is and who isn't, and who's been completely victimized. And maybe this person is drafting a false allegation. It's a waste of taxpayer money. A child that truly needs assistance, that is in desperate need of an organization to oversee them and assist them. So yeah.
You know, this topic of false allegations, um, it really bothers me. That was used against me, and and my allegations weren't false. Like my daughter reported being strangulated. Well, it's easy to figure out that, of course, she was telling the truth because A, my ex journaled about it. B, she corroborated her behavior by running away from him multiple times, with police going to find her to secure her and bring her home. C, I think actually my kids did it to other kids at school because that's what happened to them, unfortunately. Very easy to prove, right?
Absolutely.
But they called me a false alleger. But there's one thing. Why would a primary caretaker endorse false allegations? I mean, I was the breadwinner. Even though I worked part-time, I still made more than he did. So I was the breadwinner. I was the primary caretaker. I was the pediatrician. I was the accountant. I mean, during our marriage, I did it all, right? So why would I make false allegations? I'm not the underdog, right?
Like,
But in your case, it's clear who the underdog is and why somebody would want to make false allegations, right? So, he's got these problems. He has this history of 5 arrests. He's trying to get custody. He has to come up with something to have access. But when you have a parent that is the primary caretaker and all these things, there's no underlying motive to lie. But here, in this case, they're going through your refrigerator, wasting resources on false allegations.
mm-hmm.
So I just think, one of the things is to be careful and look at who's the underdog of the situation, because research actually says that men are 17 times more likely to make false allegations. And that's probably because of the traditional structure of, of families, that by and large, there's still the role where the mom is the primary caretaker and the dad isn't, even though they're trying to change that these days or what have you and so forth. But by and large, it's most likely going to be men, because they're going to be the underdog, because they were the ones going out to work and the moms were staying at home. So it makes only sense to me that the underdog is going to be the one making the false allegations. Research says 17 times more likely that it's going to be a man, and it's not going to be the woman.
It's true. Yeah. But there's some women that absolutely, we know that draft false allegations on some great fathers out there.
Yes,
absolutely. And I don't condone anybody, and that's why they make it with your Amber Heard and all these people that cry wolf. They make it very difficult for us that have actually had to endure, the domestic violence and factual allegations. Absolutely.
Yeah, but to me, those are those are triply bad women because they do hurt those of us who are sincere, and they hurt our children,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's still, research says it's 17 times more likely to be a
100%.
man. And I just think really the context of it is who's going to bother going through endorsing false allegations and keeping up a lie if they don't have to? So if you are the primary caretaker and so forth, there's really not going to be reasons to come up with a false allegation, so but it seems obvious to me when you have the guy with 5 arrests making CPS reports onto you.
Yeah. You would think, and like I said, you would think a CPS, or it should be squashed at CPS agency, and
But something obviously gave him also the cojones, right?
yeah,
To think
right.
that he could get away with that, and probably to do with his cronyism and so forth, and in contacts with CPS and things, that he thought he might actually be able to pull that off, even with his arrest history.
Yeah, they do, and I think there are many times that you're overwhelmed on the first accusation. You're kind of like, "What?" You're taken off guard, and but you fight it. And like I said, I was not going to go down on any false allegation, not once but twice. So, and that's the important thing. I know a couple parents that are just have given up, and there was one mother that's just a stellar parent of 4 children, and our children were raised together. So we had the same. I'm more of a tiger mom, and she's from another country, but she's very strict, and same thing. Just raises her children to be, you know, have manners, and know what old school, just respect for everyone. And when you are, I got a call, so I was thrown off. Sorry about that. So when you are thrown off on your allegations, I believe you have to fight to the fullest extent and not give up. So this mother wanted to apply for a daycare center, even though these allegations were false. Her children said, "You know what? They forced us. People in school forced us to lie and said you hit us," and then so it came out. And
Wow.
to this
Yeah.
day, she's not allowed, because she kind of gave up and didn't want to fight the allegations, even though they were unfounded, or I think they were founded falsely, even though the children said they were false allegations. But she, to this day, it's on her record. And I think anyone that has had these allegations, don't give up. If you're innocent, fight to your fullest,
Yes.
like your last breath.
Yeah, don't ever accept anything you didn't do. I totally agree with that, because if you ever accept something that you didn't do, it comes back at you like 100-fold down the
Oh,
road. Um, I actually was a victim of false allegations from a female in my time. My ex's brother's wife, she called CPS, identified herself as me, and made a complaint onto herself to make it look like I was harassing her.
wow.
And she, I believe she's in and out of psych units.
Yeah.
Um, but um, but my point in that too, again, a false allegation was so obvious,
Yeah.
because when you're coming up with a false allegation too, um, it's hard to keep the story going and going and going. And ultimately, we were like frantic, like, what's her cell phone number in case she called from her cell phone?
Yeah.
But when you're just not there, you're just not there. And she called from her home phone and she got arrested.
Fantastic. Carbon's it.
But my experience, of that was, a false allegation is really hard to maintain. And it was so obvious. And then, like, she was so disturbed, she called from her home phone. So, and that was also an interesting conversation with the investigators, because they were like, well, now we just have to prove that it was her. And I was like, well, it's just her and her husband that live in the house. And I don't think her husband has a female voice. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Nice.
but, but yeah, it's an interesting thing, but they do, abusers use that false allegations to people who are, on people that are sincere. But I just think is the point is you just got to see who the underdog is. And it becomes quite obvious, and the arrest history, and my sister-in-law being in and out of mental health. The one thing that I do have a problem with, though, is like people with bipolar disorder, some things like that, because there's like 7 million people with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
So that means anytime somebody with bipolar disorder reports sex abuse, they're not going to be believed. And like, how dangerous is that?
Absolutely. No. Yeah.
So what else? So CPS, your ex made these false allegations. You said there's some kind of more recent things going on. Um, you I know we don't want to get too involved in that, but I think there's still some shocking circumstances that we might want to talk about.
Absolutely. So this is kind of the, when I try to bring enlightenment and layman's terms and show people that have faith in the system and the justice system, or think that CPS is there to protect you, or schools are there to protect you. No, it's quite opposite. I just found out, I'll just, say it, that I wasn't alerted by my school. So I have been alienated. And I use that term because you look it up in Webster, Wikipedia. Alienation is not having a part, of being separated from another party. So I've been alienated from my child, from my abuser, for since he's 10. My child is now 12. And he's had to condone this lie that, and that's why you don't tell a lie, because you have to live it. And remember what the other lie that you told. So I just found out that my child has attended less than or has missed more than 90% of the entire school year this year. Over 90%. And do you think there's no order of protection on my children? I've been unfounded, and those false accusations were squashed up in Albany. The school did not alert me, and it's their duty, and that's part of their regulations, that you have to alert the other party. Whether you're a prisoner in jail, you still have to be notified that your child isn't attending school. And it was, us having children and you being a child, your parents like, you better go to school. I'm going to go to jail. Well, not in Long Island, Suffolk County, New York. No. So they are okay with it. And now the abuser is like, so I had a psych evaluator call me. That's the only way I found out my child has missed more than 90%. And as a DF student, I don't even know why they even bothered. Just say he flunked. But no, they're very laxed in Long Island. And it's an outrage. So to find this secondhand out, and not by the school, and then CPS wasn't alerted. CPS should have been alerted, because that's a neglect issue. The laws are so different and so double standard on parents. And this is where you get the covert narcissist in action, and the lawyer in him saying, swaying them to say whatever. I'm a terrible person, probably that. Who knows what he said, but to not be alerted as a parent, it's an ethical issue. It's a moral issue for school. And now I had to bring it up to CPS's attention. I have no problem saying that, because that is neglect.
I don't want to talk about my situation so much that the show seems like it's about me, because it's really your story. But on the other hand, we both have attorney exes, and our stories are so horribly similar. It's like it's the same playbook that everyone goes by, and the playbook is well known. So why does it still keep working? Because it's a fake playbook. It's not legit, and these things are happening to our kids, because that's what happened to me too with my daughter. And when you take a child and you put them into their abuser's custody, sometimes they end up not thriving.
Oh,
And some of the markers of a child's thriving is educational, emotional, physical, right?
absolutely.
So your child was thriving with you,
Absolutely.
is now in the abuser's custody, who did jail time for child abuse, and is now failing to thrive educationally. And how long ago was this report opened?
Oh my gosh. So this report was just opened less than a month ago, but
And
I just found out at the last day of school, not by the school alerting me,
right.
by a psychological center. Say my child needs psychological evaluation. You would think somebody would see where, and that's my hopes of this. I will bring it up on my whatever I'm going to I'm going to take of. I don't want residential custody now that my children have not lived with me for 2 years. It's a different story, and like I said, but I do think need this addressed, and you have to see it from the child thriving prior in your custody all these years of. I think they maybe missed Stacy. They 6 school days in the last 8 years they have been in my custody, solely of me taking care of them. 6 days, and I have no problem taking my child, saying he don't want to go to school. My older one time when he was like 7, I don't want to go to school. I had no problem taking him to school in his Spider-Man pajamas, and that was the last time he played that game. So
Hello, right?
exactly, I
Hello.
don't
So obviously you're the cure to the problem of the education issue. Do
absolutely
you know do you know how I found out my daughter wasn't going to school?
no.
A child knew better than any adult to tell me.
Wow.
I found out from a classmate that my daughter had missed 70 some days of school by like December or January, something like this. February, I found out.
And the school didn't alert you?
School did not tell me. Like you said, a prisoner has more rights than a good mom.
Exactly. I mean, you could be Charlie Manson, and Charlie Manson probably have more contact and know about his children from the schools, from therapists, if they even too, or the courts.
So I want
Absolutely.
to tell you, because this happened to me, I looked into it, right? Um, so it's funny because Tracy, you're going to be like right there with me too. Like, because we have attorney X's, like you get thrown every single hurdle that there is in this. So
Yep.
you're going to be like me too. Like, we're both going to be like, been there, done that. And this is how you do this. And this is how you do that. Cause we are there to experience
Yep.
this. So so I was going through this and my daughter had missed all these days of school. I did find that there was a mandate, I think by New York State Office of Children and Family Services, that the school districts were supposed to submit to OCFS their policies on reporting educational neglect. Unfortunately, our school district was not in compliance. I saw one for New York City, but you may want to look into if your school district complied with that mandate from OCFS, and if they did submit their protocol for reporting educational neglect, because the one that I saw from New York City was like so many days tardy would constitute and make, incite a report.
Yeah.
So many days absent. Is the child failing anything? Is there teachers commenting that, attendance is affecting grades? There may be a mandated policy that they're supposed to follow that may help you show, because otherwise it's like subjective. Well,
Yeah.
we didn't think it was neglect at that point. The
Yeah.
father was trying to get her in, so we didn't think he was neglectful because he was attempting,
Yeah.
you know. So they'll come up with excuses, but if it's in writing what they're supposed to do and then they didn't do it, that'll help you out. Maybe I can try and look for it too. It was a lot of digging actually it took
Yeah.
to get there. So,
Appreciate it.
um, but yeah, I mean, it's horrific because the thing about this is, uh, um, you hear about other people getting CPS indications for educational neglect and their kids taken away. In fact, I did a story on a gal in Rockland County,
Mhm.
and they were homeschooling. And I'm telling you, I visited the house, and there were like 30 3-inch binders of all their work product and homeschooling that they were doing for their child, and their child got taken away for educational neglect, and they even are like trying to do a termination of parental rights based on
Wow.
educational neglect. And I saw the work product. So so then this attorney, nobody reports it, and there's all these days and there are inconsistent findings from CPS who's educationally neglecting their child when you're an attorney and you're a crony in the system versus when you're somebody else and you don't have these special favors.
Outrageous, and it is definitely it's a boys club. Like I said, I don't care. So he's not the greatest attorney, absolutely, but you know what, just because it's like you've got to help turning a blind eye on the being a police officer, it's the same thing. And for and I guess that's why they're attorneys, because they can talk their way out of anything except a ticket for me. But that's the thing. They sway. That's what an abuser does. He tries to gaslight at the other parties, whether it be the school or the counselors. And you would think that he gets data or parent of the year. They're like, well, Mr. So and so is really trying. Well, my ex is 6'2", 270 pounds, and my child is maybe 5 feet. Not that he, and I definitely believe he's fearful, but like I told a judge in Long Island, Judge Graff, and this happened, and go figure. These are my exact words, Stacy, and I have it on record. That, well, Your Honor, if because I wanted therapeutic therapy to continue, as my children have always been in that. So my ex was in contempt, because you have to, like I said, you have to remember the last lie, and now you guys have created a lie with your child, which is completely warped. Any parent that does that is just despicable. So now, yeah, my famous last words are, Your Honor, if my child doesn't want to go to school, does that mean he doesn't have to either? That's different. And lo and behold, what has happened this year? My child has said, you know what? I guess he drives the bus apparently at that house.
Right.
But sure,
Well, that's what abusers do, though. They let them drive the bus because then that's what keeps them there.
absolutely. And then you think, and then him now convincing the school that he's made every effort. You know what? I'm 5'3". I don't think I need a lot of effort to make my kid and call. I will, I will do whatever I have to do to take you to school, and you will be in that school, no matter if you're bigger than me. Absolutely.
Oh,
So
sweetheart. No, no. Believe me, in my lifetime, I have learned to never underestimate the power of the petite.
absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, and we're moms. We will get that job done, and you will show up whether we have to sleep in a tent in front of school. I will have you there. But
Yeah.
things. So this school system in Long Island is just like, oh well, the father is making great efforts. And no, if the father wanted to make a great effort instead of being spiteful, then he would have made his child go to school, our child. And that's the thing. It's a double standard, and it's them believing. And like I told the counselor, you will find out who my ex-husband is. I will show you arrest records. I will show you the abuse of everything, and you're going to be made the fool of.
Do you know, this is so bad that I don't advise this to anybody, but I had asked my judge several times to stop having hearings off the record, and I filed affidavits to the case to that effect, but he still kept doing it. And so that's, it's a violation of due process. So the next time he held a hearing off the record, I recorded it. And I sent a copy of the recording to all parties so they can assure accuracy of my transcript from the recording.
Perfect.
And I cited Judiciary Law 750, number 6, sentence number 2, that a judge cannot punish as a contempt the attempt to furnish a full and accurate record of any hearing. And also 42 USC 1983, you can vigorously defend your constitutional rights, and constitutional right is due process. So I served the transcript and the recording to all parties, and I sought the judge's recusal. But in that recording, he was talking about how my ex is such a wonderful father because he lets my daughter decide if she wants to go to school or not.
Yeah, see, that's
And he's not stern. He lets her figure herself out.
wow.
So that's a good dad.
Yeah, that isn't it funny? Yeah, that is. I'm speechless. Why am I not shocked by this? And it's sad because I think the good parents are getting punished, and there's more, or scrutinized a lot more, as opposed to people that are making a mockery of the whole system are praised, and there's like blinders on for these judges and everything else.
Well, like I said, just from the top, like I said, I think the Commission on Judicial Conduct, and I will tell you, in New York State, the real authority on judicial conduct and attorneys is not the CJC, is not the Attorney Grievance Committee. It's actually the appellate court.
Second division. You know what, Stacy? No, I beg to differ. Do you know I wrote them? It's an extensive letter. I showed evidence of him with the last 2019 of him getting arrested for the 5th time for child abuse, and he was actually, I mean, the police were actually taking pictures of my son's bruised body, and EMS came, and there was pictures of them taking his vitals and stuff, and how to get CAT scans. Do you know that I brought this to the ethics committee or the second appellate division, and they're like, it's more of a family matter. So
yeah, I know they're the ultimate authority, but yet they don't do anything.
Exactly.
Because my judge called my kids' counselors. Daniel Furlong called my kids' counselors and directed them to ignore any medical evidence of sexual abuse. No. And he said that on court transcript. Wow. So that, to me, is witness tampering, is evidence tampering.
Absolutely.
And the appellate court did nothing. The appellate court did. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like everything works opposite what we think it's supposed to. And it's, and there's a lot of people who bear the concept that, or embrace the concept that perhaps what's really going on here is they're just, at the end of the day, they're all looking at the dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And who's making money off of children who are abused? The system.
Everybody. And like I
And
said,
so they're keeping our children in abusive situations because it's job security and more money down the road for them. And it's you spending more money to get more access to the courts and to for this motion and that motion and fighting because you're scared to death for your child.
yeah, you have to worry as, every day of like, how can you have an order of protection, after you just abused your child and got out of jail? And this is a perfect example, Stacy, that just it's infuriating. You get out of jail 24 hours later, there's an order of protection placed by the detectives and the DA. And now all of a sudden I get paperwork and saying you must allow your ex-husband to have visitation overnight weekends. He just got arrested. What does that tell you? That he had an ex parte conversation with it in a judge's chambers. Who knows? He maybe said, you know what, Miss Arms is being very spiteful, doesn't want me to see my child. There's an order of protection. No, what he's failing to let the judge know, the reason why there's an order of protection, maybe because you just threw your child across the room like a piece of garbage. Maybe that's why. So there has to be transparency of you can't just lift an order of protection. You can't, and you have now as a parent, you have to worry every other weekend if your child's going to come home in one piece or there's not some suicide pact attached to your child for vengeance. We're all dealing. We've dealt with it.
Yeah.
We're not the first. We're not the last. And this is the problem in the system. It is completely beyond broken that they are
Yeah.
allowing to use full access to our children.
Well, my heart really goes out to you because it's one thing if parents are bickering kind of back and forth because they both love their kid and they both want to have time with their kid and so forth. But when you see a child thriving in one environment and a swift change and then they're not thriving and it's not just educational failure to thrive, but it seems like emotional too if they're having a psychologist see your child. And I've like that, that makes me feel really concerned that things are very severe. And then you see these changes in your child's response to you that
Yeah.
you're so concerned that you don't even want to go for full custody because of the changes in their behavior in response to you. I'm very concerned for your child and my heart just really goes out to you because I know what this is. And you know what? All these people know what this is. The caseworkers, the judges, CPS, the police, and it appears that they're aiding and abetting it instead of doing the right thing to help you and help your child.
They're part of the problem. And like I told
Yeah.
CPS, he's like, I hope this guy's completely different. And do not be swayed or have the wool pull over your eyes. Look at the facts. Look at who the parent, the wrong parent, the parent with the anger issues and destructive behavior, and look at the parent that gets actually drug tested. I get a drug test and psychological eval every year. I get random drug testing, so I'm not going to risk my career over something so petty. So you do the math, and it's sad that I see my children are basically he's probably getting high in his basement doing law for a firm in the city, and my kids are pretty much raised by themselves. There's no interaction with my children. They're just used as pawns and a tax write-off for $7,500 a year, and that's the price tag, Stacy, on my children of spitefulness and a tax deduction, and it's just that's it. But my
Do you
children,
do you make more than your ex?
I do.
That's the problem.
I've always had, and he brought it to my attention that he was more educated than me, and I was like, you know what? You may be, and that's a typical narcissist. I'm more educated than you. I know bigger words than you, and that's fine because I wasn't allowed. I didn't go to law school. That's fine. You have one up on me. But you know what? And as I told him, you may be more educated than me and have a law degree, but I run circles around you financially. I'm the one that runs this household. Let's not
So
forget.
that's a lot of his resentment, right?
Yeah.
But it's also why the system is behaving the way they are because they're making more money off of you with the kids being
course.
placed.
Absolutely. And that's it. What parent, and that's what it comes down to. I was interviewed yesterday at a New York rally, and someone's like, what do you think the reason why uh, these parents are, trying to are doing this, alienating the good parent from the bad parents, or judges awarding the children to abusers? Bottom line is, you as a mother and me as a mother, or any parent, a good parent is going to go to the end of the earth, spend their last cent, work 5 jobs if they have to, 25 hours a day to get our children out of a bad situation, which we all have. I've worked nonstop and have made sure my children are, uh, even though I'm gone, I've made sure that they have every need taken care of. So yeah, I will pay a $10,000 or have to. Like I said, this last year, 2019, it's not because I wanted to pay a $10,000 retainer. I didn't abuse my child, but I had to pay for legal assistance because there was no legal advocates there to represent my child. There wasn't anyone in the DA. There wasn't anybody. So what did I have to do? Hire a thief in Long Island, another leech of an attorney that did absolutely nothing. There are two things I hired him for. He couldn't
Yep.
even do.
Yep. That's
So,
what they do. They
and
take your money, they give you a crumb of defense, but they're really helping the other side.
absolutely. And this is what the court system wants. They want a vicious cycle of us not bringing pro se. They're going to knock whatever motions we have drafted just for the lightest inaccuracies. And they're going to want us to put more money back in the system, hiring another attorney. That's it. And that's what it comes out to. The better parent is always going to go to the ends of the earth to find, to have representation for your child. And unfortunately, that puts money in the system.
Yeah, it's operating more like a business than it is any sort of best interest for children. It's best interest for their bank, really.
Absolutely. And we see that with the guardian items, the Catherine Kasanoff case, and that is great. And I hope nobody, Robbie Harvey, the Frank report, so all these other people that are showing the injustice, and all of a sudden people are kind of enlightened now, like, oh my gosh, this judge is getting just married the guardian litem. No kidding. It's a full circle, It's like, hey, Stacey, you're my friend. I'm going to turn a blind eye, and don't worry, we'll make the other person miserable.
Well, the attorney for children on my case, my ex actually used to do attorney work for him for over a decade.
Who's their loyalty? Yeah, you're telling me
Yeah,
he's loyal to
and
you?
the court would say, we don't see a conflict of interest.
No, this is the thing. There's no oversight, and you show people that are filing Article 78s and stuff and everything else, and it's just kind of like, no. There's someone that in Florida, a mom I talked to, and yeah, she's having a hard time because there's a huge discrepancy of she's worked with the ex-spouse. So no, you have to say it. There's huge favors going on, which has to come to a stop.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. I feel like you're my
Thank
ditto
you.
here.
Absolutely.
You're
I
the
feel
ditto
like we're
ladies.
preaching to the choir, and then you're preaching to the choir because and I think we have it so much more difficult, Stacey, if people don't realize, it's that legal abuse that we have to deal with, and the favoritisms. And before we draft something, we have to think about what we're doing, because they're going to have insight, and they're going to have swayed the judge, have these conferences without us. And like I said, the order of protection that my child, how can you have an OOP? And this is the problem. This is what makes it even more difficult for people in our position.
So how many days of school has your child missed?
More than 90%. They will not, the school, I asked them to disclose how many physical days they have missed, or my child has missed, and how many he has attended. And it's very generic, and it's very blasé, and I'm not going to put up with it. I want to know, and it's my right as a parent, how many physical days did his little cherub body sit in that seat, and how many days did he sit at home playing Xbox or the Switch? Absolutely. So they didn't want to disclose. And like I said, I will not let this go. They messed with the wrong mom.
It'll be interesting to see if people comment on our show, if they've been indicated for less on educational neglect. 90% of school. I'm sure there are people who are indicated on less.
I cannot wait for your viewers to speak up and let me know, because let them know that you could be a lawyer and not let your kid go to school more and miss 90% of the school year. And when I find the actual days, I'd love to enlighten you. You could just say give a little bullet point and let your viewers know that this child has missed over 100 and something days, and nothing happens to the lawyer father again.
Do you know
Because
what my ex did?
what?
Because she was missing so much school, he enrolled her in homeschooling through our school district.
On what grounds?
And she's on homeschooling through the school district. And guess how they are relying on for grades and attendance?
I don't know.
The father's honor system.
Oh my God, this is insane. This is the problem.
So, if you want your child to graduate magna cum laude, put them into homeschooling, everybody.
And like, you know what? My child should be valedictorian this year. Why? Who voted? Myself. That's insane. This is
So please, everybody that's listening,
make your child an A student. That's insane.
not really. I don't want to tell anyone to commit fraud, but that it just says the ridiculousness of the situation.
That's absurd. How old is your child now?
She's 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
Still in school?
Still doing the homeschooling.
Wow. I cannot, just when you think you've heard, you can't believe it. This is one for today.
Yeah.
Wow. This is insane, but
you have to laugh instead of cry.
I have no more tears to cry, Stacey. And
right?
I understand. Mm-hmm. Isn't it sad? I think I'm pretty much dead inside. I honestly mean that. I
don't think you're dead. No, because I swear, like, you're my ditto, right?
Yeah.
You're not dead inside. You're here on the show. If you were dead inside, you wouldn't care to bring light to the situation and help other people.
I want to for people to speak out of the injustice and the favoritism and the double standard. Absolutely. But do not give up. Like I said, last year it was a different story. It was a hard blow to, file this contempt, and then 2 days, and that's the thing. If you have an emotion, the wording is just so important. The child must be enrolled in therapy, as opposed to, so I waited 1 entire year for my children to be put in therapeutic therapy, because they definitely have always been it. And that one word, that judge kicked it out. Like, Ms. Arms, 2 days ago, your ex enrolled them. That doesn't mean they have to attend, because your little one doesn't feel like he wants to go. And then that's when I brought up, well, Your Honor, if my child doesn't want to go to school, and lo and behold, I opened up Pandora's box, and look what happened. Now my kid has missed over 90% of the school year.
And they still can't decide what house the child should be at, even though with you they only missed 6.
At them in their entire lifetime, they've maybe missed 6. Absolutely, you better be bleeding from the ears and eyeballs and have 105 fever, and then you can stay home. But I don't play around, and I'm very strict. But I'm a very active mother, parent, and anybody that knows me knows I go paintballing and just everything with my 2 boys. I have 2 boys, 15 and 12 now. But but like I said, 6 days maybe at the most that they were actually ill. But so it's a double standard.
And you're not dead inside, Mom. You're not dead inside. You're strong. Don't confuse that with being strong. You're very strong. You're very concerned about your kids.
Yeah.
You're putting your anxiety aside because the care of your kids and your ability to fight for your kids is more important.
No, absolutely, to this day. And this is the consequences of, these judges turning a blind eye, and the bottom line is the children's interests, and everybody says it's children's interest, but it's a money racketeering thing. Yeah. It's a scheme. It's like a Ponzi scheme. It's just more money to CPS, ACS. Longer cases go on. Everybody is guaranteed a paycheck for the next year at least that the case is open. But things like this, the wrongdoings should not be a double standard for certain parents, and it should be a no-brainer. There needs to be accountability for someone to call out the good parent and bad parent, and the emotional stress on the children, and what their differences of being in the good parent and the parent that really is just using them as pawns.
When I was married to my ex, he straight up told me that when a parent presents to a divorce attorney, the first thing the divorce attorney does is looks at the financial portfolio.
Wow. Yeah.
and they see this retirement account and that account, and they say to themselves, this is what my ex told me. They say to themselves, I'm going to keep this going until that's mine, and that's mine.
Yep.
And he said that to me, but I still filed for divorce because what was I to do? Because, I filed because I was concerned about my kids being abused, right?
So yeah.
But so I thought, that the courts would act, you know, I knew that, perhaps in a traffic ticket situation that there might be cronyism or somebody that lets somebody go by on it. I never thought that this would rise to a level of at the expense of children.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to say to you, because we're like the ditto ladies
Yeah.
here,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
don't think that ticket that he lost and got you 3 points wasn't intentional.
I have. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because my ex drove a vehicle registered in my name and collected so many parking tickets that the letter for arrest came to my house.
These
So,
horribles. I've
what's
had the
the coincidence?
and I've had the same. I've had a car towed because of him under my
Yeah,
name. So
yeah.
yes, they are. There's something else.
Don't
They
be shocked if he performed underwhelmingly in court so that you would get points on your license.
yeah, I'm sure to be spitefulness. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, the down.
because he was an abuser. Yeah.
Absolutely. Whether it was physical or it was definitely physical. That's number one. I've never, and like I said, it was the toughest lesson. You cannot change people, whether they're alcoholics, have anger issues as a woman or a man. You cannot change people. They will never change. A spot or on a leopard are still will never be gone. But yeah, and whether it's financial abuse, like I said, so it
Well, I think talking to you, he messed with the wrong mama.
absolutely. He'll have no fury on a woman's scorn. Absolutely. And especially a good mom. So, like I said, everybody needs to keep up the fight, and we have our good days and bad days, but you can't let it get to you. You need, I wish I could say let justice prevail, but I can't say that because we're up against the so called justice system, and they are awarding abusers purposely. To these and using these children as pawns, and they're going to be emotionally damaged the next generations on.
Well, I'm going to pray for you that CPS does the right thing in this case.
Yeah. Like I said,
I'm
even
going
though,
to pray for you. I don't have faith. I won't be shocked if they come up with something that excuses him away, because I've seen it so many times.
yeah,
Um, but um, but I'm going to pray for you that they do the right thing,
thank you.
and hopefully, maybe by speaking about this, that they're more inclined with the publicity, that people knowing that an attorney has a child missing 90% of school, and there are people watching this, some who are afraid to speak up but still know, and some who might speak up, that were indicated for far less educational neglect.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's supposed to be, equal protection under the law and so forth, and citizens treated equally. So I hope that they actually do the right thing, but it's far and few that I see the right thing done by CPS. But I hope they do it for you, and I'm going to pray.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I appreciate it. And thank you for
Oh,
having me on here. But yeah, let your viewers know. And this is a reality. And like I said, whether somebody's arrears of $75,000 and you're an attorney, or whether you're a mother of 1,200 and you're being jeopardized to go incarceration, your driver's license taken away, I have no problem, letting them and use my case as a fact of there's a double standard. And this is the problem. Yeah, because, yeah, it has to stop.
all right, sweetheart. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you so
coming on
much,
the
Stacey.
show.
I
And
appreciate it.
yeah, and let me know how you do, and I'm going to follow and see what happens for you. And if they don't do anything, I will share in your outrage on this.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, let's see what comes, and let's see if really the truth prevails and this person gets away with having no accountability to take care of his child.
Yeah.
That is like, yeah. All right.
All right, sweetheart. Well, you have a lovely day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye.
All right, bye.